And after thinking back in my past, I really do think she was either trying to put a tracker or some kind of device in my nose, or she was trying to take one out. And maybe, I had one, but I really think that that's what they was doing. I feel like a human guinea pig, and it's a shame, but we do animals the same way. You hear these labs and they experiment with them and all, and I feel like that's what I was, a big experiment to them.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this: do you think prior to that, you think you had an encounter and didn't remember, and this was maybe a follow-up, or you think this was the first contact ever with them?
It's hard to say.
Mm-hmm.
Now, back in just before John F. Kennedy, or right after John F. Kennedy, and that's the way I remember this, got killed, my brother and I used to have to share a room in a house because we had a small house. And he woke up screaming one night. And I said, "What the hell's wrong with you?" He said, "There's a ghost blowing in your ear." Well, I didn't think nothing about it up until here lately. But it could have been, because he was serious. Now, he was a type person, you could spook him pretty easy, but, he ain't going to lie to you about nothing. And I got to thinking about that, because my ear did kind of seem a little wet and all, but it could have been my imagination of just being a kid, too.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this. So now she's done run her two fingers through your mouth and out your nose. What was her next move, or was there other, did she have other compadres come in, or what happened from there?
Well, when she said, "We're not going to harm you," her mouth never moved. I feel like that was what I heard somebody call it mental telepathy or something. But she was putting that thought in my brain. She pulled her hand out, and she backed up and made a little mumbling noise. And when she did, that old big ugly robotic-looking creature, he come grab me by the arm again, and I heard like a little swoosh of air. And come to find out later, they said that this was kind of like an air injection, and I never heard of this, but like in the military, they get gallon jugs of vaccine, and you walk through there, and they shoot this stuff in your arm with air. And that's what I think this was kind of like, that nerve calming stuff, whatever he gave me. Mm-hmm. And I kind of settled down, and he pretty much just carried us back out the door, set me out on the river, facing the river, my arms stretched out, me standing up. And the next thing I heard was Charlie, son, you okay? Well, Charlie was on the ground, laying down. I don't know how long he'd been there or why he was down, but anyhow, he was laying down on the ground, and we both stood up and turned around, and that's when we noticed this bright light going out all at one time. And then the little blue hazy lights came back on. This thing shot up a little ways, and it just, like lightning, disappeared into the sky. But coming to find out here lately, we've had a lot of eyewitnesses come forward about this.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. Have you ever had a chance to converse with the couple eyewitnesses that have come forward?
I have. And matter of fact, just last about 2 weeks ago, this guy wanted to come down. He was going to check and film for a documentary, and he interviewed all the witnesses. And we all got into one room because I wanted to meet them. I had met one of them, but I wanted to meet every one of them and talk to them myself. So he put us all in a room at a round table, and we had the best conversation. And, I believe that they believe what they say, and I really do. Especially one of them. I mean, she broke down, was in tears, and, she was real concerned about it. And the other one seemed really sincere. We had one that just talked a little too much,
Yeah.
So, but, all of them seemed real sincere.
Mm-hmm. So, geez, That's a heck of a story. Now, when you were in the ship, how big was the ship? Out of curiosity.
Just looking, okay, from the outside when I was standing at the river, this thing looked to be about 80 or 100 foot long. It's hard to judge distance with light in your eyes or see something.
Yeah.
But when I got into the door, you know, I really couldn't see no end to it. I couldn't see any instruments or anything. The only thing I seen was that deal that come out from the ceiling. And I think it was, I don't know, some kind of medical device or something, maybe like an MRI they use here today, except they're a lot more advanced about it.
Mm-hmm.
But it seemed pretty deep, about 40 foot deep, just looking, going down that hallway.
Wow.
I wish I had been a little more calmer, where I could have took a lot more mental notes. And I've actually been hypnotized to find out if there's something I could have left out inside the craft.
Oh, so you've had some regression therapy. What did you find out through that?
Well, the first time I got hypnotized was Dr. John Allen Hynek came down and Dr. Harder, and he tried, and he had to bring me out. This was the very next day because I was kind of panicky still. But the second time I got hypnotized, it's just a trot line full of information come out of that. What had happened, I had been fishing, and this was in 93. And I told my wife, I said, you know, I don't fish no more at night, and I'm going to take the boat, and I'm going to Cat Island, and I'm going to fish, and I'll be home before dark. Well, when I got to the island, I was sitting there eating my lunch, and this was about 11 o'clock, I guess. I still didn't have a watch on because I didn't have no need to keep up with the time. I didn't think. And I come to, and it was dark. I said, well, I must have dozed off to sleep. So I got in the boat, and I went home. And when I got to the boat landing, going to load my boat up on the truck, I noticed the clock in the truck said 3 o'clock. But that was 3 o'clock a.m. So I had from 11 o'clock, which was almost noon, to 3 a.m. the next morning, all this missing time.
You had that much missing time?
I had that much missing time.
Wow. Okay, and so now you found that out through the regression, correct?
Right. It all started actually the next day. So that was really bothering me where all this time went. Now, this bothered me more than being abducted in 73. And I told a friend the next day that came over, and he used to invent medical equipment and stuff. So I sat there and talked to him, and he was real educated. He said, you know, I live in Tampa, and they got a conference going on there. And this guy speaking at the conference, I was looking at some of them books the other day, wrote a book on missing time. His name's Bud Hopkins. He said, let's go talk to him. It's still going on. Well, I really didn't want to go, but this was really bothering me. So we left, and we made that 12-hour trip to Tampa, Florida, and we got there probably about 9 o'clock at night. And I told him, I said, now I'm not going to go in. I don't know these people. I don't want to talk about this bull or anything because it was a conference, UFO conference or something. So you go in and talk to him. But, you know, I don't really want to talk to him. He probably don't even know me. Well, he went in and talked, and this was Bud Hopkins.
Yeah, he's a big name.
Yeah, he's big time. And Bud agreed to meet and talk to me when he got through. So he gave us the keys to his room, motel room. Said, y'all go on up, and I'll be up there in 30 minutes. I want to talk to him. Please keep him there. So we left and went to his room. And sure enough, just a few minutes, Bud showed up. Well, we introduced ourselves, and we started talking a little bit. And Bud said, tell me about it. So I told him about just what I told y'all about the missing time.
Right.
He said, will you agree to let me hypnotize you? I said, Bud, I can't be hypnotized. There's no reason to even try. And he said, please, let me try it. And he said, I think it will help you. So I agreed to let Bud hypnotize me. And I told him, I said, now look, I've seen these floor shows in Las Vegas where they make them get up and do stupid stuff. They put things in their mind.
Yeah.
I said, I got a ball bat in the car, and I'm going to give it to my friend. And if you make me do something like that, now I didn't know Bud from anybody, so, I was concerned.
Yeah.
I said, he's going to take his ball bat and beat your brains out and hand it to me when I get up, and he's going to leave. He said, don't worry about nothing like that. I promise. So I agreed to let this friend of mine and his wife stay in the room while I was being hypnotized. So they stayed in, and sure enough, they went through a very long hypnotic thing. And the thing about it, he put a post-hypnotic suggestion in my head that I wouldn't remember none of what had happened until I was ready to remember it.
Oh.
And so I went years up until the time that I had started writing the book. Now, Philip Mantle, the publisher of the book, and my wife, they're the ones that taught me into writing the book. I still didn't want to write it. But it was going, I went in and I did my part, and Philip did his part, which was 90% of the book. But anyhow, I was, doing my part, and I just happened to mention to Philip that I had Bud Hopkins had tried to hypnotize me, but he never could. Well, light bulbs went off in Philip's head. He knew Dr. Jacobs. He knew Bud Hopkins personally, but he was already deceased. But he did know Dr. Jacobs, and Dr. Jacobs had Bud Hopkins work. He called Dr. Jacobs, and Dr. Jacobs had the original tape that Bud Hopkins did. And Dr. Jacobs called me and wanted to know if he could send it to Philip. I said, sure, can't be much to it. Well, he got that. He transcribed it out and started putting it in the book. Well, when he got through, he sent me a CD disc and the transcripts from the book to that he was going to put in, to get my approval on it. I said, well, but Philip is nothing to approve because he never hypnotized me. Well, I got in, and I didn't pay it much attention. I read just a page of it, just enough to see if I'd been hypnotized. And sure enough, lights started going off then. It was just like sitting there kind of watching a movie. Well, I went out. My wife and my mother was sitting on my porch, and I went out there and told them, I said, he did hypnotize me. I can't believe that. So
did the floodgates of your memory start to come back from that event when he hypnotized you and some memories and stuff?
Oh, yeah. And I tell you what brought them back. Linda Moulton Howe did an interview with me.
Mm-hmm.
She had a trigger question in there that just triggered it. And it was just going everywhere. Now, I've never, till today, I have never sat down and read the transcripts where I was hypnotized. I let my wife read them. And then as I remembered, I would go and ask her to go check and see if that was true. Because I didn't want nobody putting nothing in my mind.
Right.
And she would go back and check it, read a little more to what I remember. Yeah.
Cross-reference. Right.
Right. And it's been dead on it. But later on, I found out at the end of this thing that he put a post-hypnotic suggestion that I wouldn't remember this because that was really part of my wishes until I was ready to remember it and able to remember it.
Right. That's
and but when it started coming back like watching a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot that went on. It was a lot that went on in 73, then it was a lot went on in 93.
Well, in 93, you had almost 14 hours of missing time. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Well, let me ask you this. Tell me some